Hey guys, this is Sumuk from TechPP, and today we're going to be reviewing the Realme 6 Pro. Now, this is not like a conventional review video that we do, or even the day in the life series for that matter. This is just going to be a raw, uncut review of the phone itself. Now, I have been using the phone for a fair bit, and spoiler alert, I really like the Realme 6 Pro. So let's just try to finish this quickly. I'm just going to be as much to the point as possible. So let's begin with the design and build quality as we do with every device. So the Realme 6 Pro actually gets a glass back, Gorilla Glass 5, unlike its younger sibling, the Realme 6, which has plastic. Now, Realme has actually been nailing the design on every smartphone of theirs, and the Realme 6 Pro is no exception. As you can see, you get this thunder lightning pattern on the back. We have the blue variant, you also get an orange one, and this actually looks fantastic when light hits the glass back, and the effect that you see is actually really nice, and it's nice to see something different than your usual gradients that we've been seeing of blue, red, and whatnot. So the design on the back is something we really like. Also, the phone is slightly heavy, but also fits into the hand nicely at the same time. We did not have any issues while using the phone for day-to-day activities. It slightly feels top heavy, but again, that's not too big of a deal if you're using the phone with both hands. And the build quality overall actually seems nice. Realme has done a good job. Also, one thing to mention is that the case that is provided in the box actually is really nice. So when I put it on, it kind of gives a better grip to the phone, and it's a really snug fit, which I personally really like. So yeah, the case that's in the box is good, and the phone overall feels really nice to hold in the hand. It's quite premium. Well, that was it about the build quality. About the ports, we do get a Type-C port at the bottom which supports 30-watt charging, which we'll speak about later. And you do get a headphone jack, and the output is pretty decent. There's nothing special about it. And there's a single bottom firing speaker, which again is adequately loud but not too fantastic for mainstream music listening. Let's move to the side of the phone where now we have a fingerprint scanner, which is moved from the back to the side, and honestly it's really fast and accurate. Also, you don't really have to press the button every single time. You just have to tap on the fingerprint scanner and it unlocks your device. It's actually really quick. And also, one thing that I observed is when you put the case on, which is given in the box, it provides a nice groove for your finger to rest naturally, and that is really nice, something that I really appreciate. Well, that was it about the fingerprint scanner. Let's now move on to the front of the device where we get this really nice, gorgeous 90 hertz display with that dual punch hole cutout. Now, I personally am a fan of a single punch hole cutout because I feel the two cutouts on the front does not give a really good look. A single one looks a little more seamless in my opinion, but again, that's just based on my personal preference. Your mileage may vary. Anyhow, we do get a punch hole cutout, and you get the 90 hertz refresh rate. Now, unlike a lot of Realme devices, including the Realme 6, the 6 Pro actually gets a really nice display panel with good oleophobic coating, and that is something that I really appreciate because when you're using the phone, especially with that high refresh rate, you really want a nice, smooth, and seamless experience, and that is something that the Realme 6 Pro does indeed provide. Now the colors on the display are really nice. Of course, it's an IPS panel, so you don't get those deep blacks and punchy colors. But just for normal content viewing, we actually found that the 6 Pro has a really good display. Now the brightness is not too high, so if you're outdoors, then you might have some difficulty under direct sunlight. But the legibility in indoors is absolutely fine. The viewing angles are good, and overall, if you watch a lot of content, then you're really going to be happy with the display on the Realme 6 Pro. So now that we have spoken about the display, let's move on to performance, which can be a major deciding factor for a majority of you all watching this video. So the Realme 6 Pro actually gets a Snapdragon 720G chipset, and now this might be a surprising choice for you, given that the Realme 6 actually has a MediaTek G90T, which is mighty powerful. And also the Poco X2 has a Snapdragon 730G and is actually 1000 rupees cheaper than the 6 Pro. Now, let me just tell you all purely based on benchmarks as well as day-to-day performance. The 720G is Actually, better than the G90T, of course. Other than the GPU on the G90T is slightly more powerful. I'll just explain that part in a bit. But the 720G actually betters the 730G in terms of single core performance because of a higher clock speed, and that is something that the numbers don't really say. Because if you look at the chronology, then you might feel that the 720G actually comes below the 730G, but that's not the case. Both of them perform really well. In fact, the 720G, as I said, performs better in the single core performance because of a higher clock speed. Now, in comparison with the G90T, the 720G can run PUBG at 40 FPS max, whereas the G90T can go up to 60 FPS, of course, because of a more powerful GPU. However, we observe that the G90T does bring some disadvantages with it, like throttling or slightly warmer temperatures, which the 720G does not. So well, that's a compromise you have to make. Also, the 720G is more power efficient than the G90T. So these are some aspects that you need to keep in mind. Talking about performance on the Realme 6 Pro, we had absolutely no issues. The 720G performs like a champ, and this is including PUBG gameplay. We were able to get constant 40 FPS performance without any lags or frame drops, even in hot drops or where there are a lot of enemies around you, a lot of squads around you. Also, I play claw, that is with 4 fingers, and there was absolutely no issues with touch response. And if you're a gyroscope player, even the gyro response is absolutely fine. Overall, in terms of raw performance, the Realme 6 Pro actually does a really good job. Now you get Realme UI, which is essentially on top of ColorOS 7, based on Android 10, and you get the general customization that you get, dual apps, your game space, and the dark mode, of course, etc. And we are actually quite happy with Realme UI, especially compared to ColorOS that was previously found in Realme phones. Even though this is the same kind of build, but you do get some specific changes for Realme phones, and that is nice to see. Also, the dual punch hole cutout that you see is one single unit, unlike the Poco X2 where there are two individual camera module, if that is important to you. Well, yeah, so performance has been really nice, especially, scrolling through apps like Twitter or Instagram is really nice and fun to do because of that high refresh rate. So that's something you really appreciate after using the Realme 6 Pro. So now that we are done with performance, let's move to another major criteria, and that is the cameras. So we do get a 64 megapixel Samsung GW1 primary camera sensor on the back, along with a wide angle sensor, a telephoto lens, and a macro lens as well. So the 64 megapixel primary shooter actually is really nice in daylight, and this is something that we said even about the Realme 6. So at least start testing, the Realme 6 and the 6 Pro perform very similar in terms of camera performance. That's of course because they have the same sensor. However, the processing would be different due to the different chipsets that is there. But yeah, the same trend with Realme phones continues here too, wherein we see a lot of boosting of colors and saturated colors. So that is something that you do get. You cannot expect a very natural output. However, the dynamic range is managed really well. There is a lot of detail in the images that you capture using the Realme 6 Pro's primary camera, and overall it's a really nice experience. And this continues even in low light, where you get good shots with the night mode. But the same issue that we saw on the Realme 6 also kind of persists on the 6 Pro, wherein there are a lot of light flares when you shoot with multiple light sources in low light with the night mode. And I'm pretty sure this is something that maybe can be fixed via a software update. Let's see how well that goes. But the primary shooter in good as well as low light is really nice on the Realme 6 Pro. Now the wide angle lens also does a good job in low light of trying to maintain the level of detail, but of course it's not as good as the primary camera, but again does a decent job. And you can use the night mode even under low light, which is actually very noisy, but the shots are still usable. Now the telephoto lens actually is just a 2x lens, and it actually performs pretty decent. I mean, there's nothing to write home about it, but given that you're getting a telephoto lens at this price point on a phone is actually nice to see. It's nice to experiment with if you want to get close to a subject. And of course, there's a macro lens. You can get really close to subjects if you want to do that. Talking about the front, you do get a really nice selfie shooter. What we observed with the Realme 6 as well as the 6 Pro is that the skin tones are being managed well. The selfies are not as soft as they used to be in the past. Realme has really worked on the selfie camera algorithm, and you do get to see a lot of natural skin tones, and that's really nice to see. Also, the background blur with the portrait mode is quite nice to see, and the edge detection is also good. So the cameras overall on the Realme 6 Pro are a really nice set of sensors and lenses that you get. Now, in comparison to, let's say, the Poco X2, yes, the 6 Pro does fall short. The IMX 686 on the Poco X2 is just brilliant. The 6 Pro does come slightly close, but it cannot beat the Poco X2 in terms of camera performance. Well, that was it about the cameras, and now moving to the final parameter before we move on to some smaller miscellaneous stuff, and that is the battery life. Now, you do get a 4300 milliamp hour battery on the Realme 6 Pro, and without saying, it actually does a fantastic job of lasting throughout the day. You're able to achieve upwards of 5.5 to 6 hours of screen on time on Wi-Fi and 4G mixed usage, and that, in our opinion, is really good, especially considering the fact that you do get that high refresh rate display panel on the Realme 6 Pro, and the performance, of course, has been really nice of the battery. And one really nice thing to go hand in hand with this good battery life is that you get 30-watt Whoop charging from Realme, which can completely charge your Realme 6 Pro in just about an hour's time, and that is again really nice to see at this particular price point. So even in terms of battery life and charging, the Realme 6 Pro is really good. Now, some small things. There is wideband L1 support, so you can enjoy full HD content. There is carrier aggregation. We were able to get 4G plus signals here in Bangalore, and there is, of course, camera to API support as well. But we do not have a completely working port of Google Camera yet, because the chipset is new on the Realme 6 Pro. So we did not find a build that was absolutely functional. We will wait to see when that happens. Also, there is VO Wi-Fi support, if you were wondering. So overall, what do we think about the Realme 6 Pro? Now, for a price of rupees 16 to 17,000, at that price range, you do of course get the Poco X2 as well as the Realme 6 Pro. Now, the Poco X2, in our opinion, is slightly more of a complete package. Now, you do get a Snapdragon 730G chipset, which is now slightly old, but again performs same as the 720G, and you get a 120 Hz refresh rate on that one. You get a 4500 milliamp hour battery with very similar charging speeds. The cameras are excellent on the Poco X2. So all these parameters, when considered, kind of make you feel that the Poco X2 provides a little better value. It also sells for rupees 1000 lesser than the Realme 6 Pro. So that is something that you have to consider. Otherwise, if you're just looking at the 6 Pro specifically, then this is also a fantastic phone. You do get support for Navic on the 720G chipsets. However, we did not encounter the Navic satellites through the GNSS test app. Maybe there is something on the software side of things that Realme needs to take care of. And that's not there on the Poco X2 due to the 730G chipset, but not sure how big of a deal breaker that would be for you. Well, so yeah, if you are a fan of Realme's interface and you want the new 720G chipset, the Realme 6 Pro makes absolute sense. Or else the Poco X2 is also a really good option that you need to consider. Also, not to forget, the Redmi Note 9 Pro is also coming very soon, and there's also going to be a rumored Max variant. So let's see how well that fares in comparison to the Realme 6 Pro. Well, hope you enjoyed this video. Although there are not a lot of b-rolls or nice content to see, we hope it was informative. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Make sure you hit the like button and also subscribe if you're new. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you around.